Hey folks, welcome back to Mark Kelly Farm. We've been working outside all day, so we're going to do a real quick dinner. We're going to go shopping out of the pantry, so come shopping with me. So welcome back to our pantry. This is what the pantry looks like after almost a year after we been using out of here. You can see we still got pretty good storage in here, and you might think we haven't been using a bunch of this stuff, but we really do. All these jars up here, most of those used to be down here full of stuff, and then as we use it, we bring them back down in here. Save your boxes, folks. Put them back in your boxes. These are the ones I just brought back down here. I leave them in kind of an area next to the dishwasher, and when I get about a box full, I bring them down. So this is probably 2 weeks worth of jars here. So let's back up and show you a little bit of the root cellar again, see where we're at. I picked up these bins down here, these open front bins at an auction in town for $2 for all of them. And they not only stack in each other for transport, then you can take them loose and then stack them on each other like they are now. So instead of pulling, like before we have these milk crates, we have to pull those out and then everything's kind of on top of each other. We can do like a single layer of like our squash and stuff, our butternut squash, acorn squash, and do a single layer. That way they're not on each other. And if you start to get like a bad one or something, it doesn't spread so much into the rest of them. We still have a few of our butternut squash down in here. We've culled some of the acorn squash out, and one of the pumpkins didn't make it. We have some of our Sloppy Joe mix down here still. You can see we still got a pretty good supply of tomatoes. We have our sweet chili sauce here. I have some hot sauce over here. It's pretty much the juice from leftover from the cowboy candy. And then we got some Rotel type tomatoes here, kind of a salsa. And then here we have some diced green hatch chilies that I got from a friend of mine. We got 1 jar left of our sweet pickles and 5 jars left of our dill pickles. Ramona's in here coughing.
Sorry.
And then up here we have 1 jar left of our cowboy candy, 3 jars left of our just pickled jalapenos. We have 4 jars left of our golden beets, 5 jars left of our regular beets. And then here we have some of our grape jelly that we made from our own grapes. We've got 1 jar left of rhubarb jam. We have some blackberry jalapeno jam that I made before we moved here. And then this is some mulberry jam from our old mulberry tree out in California. And this is some plum jam that we brought from California. And then this is our wild sandhill plum jam that we made here in Nebraska. And then we're getting down to the last of our apples that we can this year, and I'm sad to see that because I don't think we're getting any apples on our tree this year. So this is going to have to last till next year, and hopefully next year we get another supply of apples. Here's our zucchini pineapple. We have 3 jars of that left, and only 4 quarts of our really fantastic Bartlett pears. We got pears from a neighbor of mine, Carl, and we canned them up, and they were just phenomenal. We've been eating the heck out of those. Let's see here. We got some of my red wine vinegar here. We have Kelly's vanilla that she's making. We have some cranberries that a friend of mine brought us. We're going to use most of these jars. We may not use all the cranberries. And then we still have a pretty good supply of our Swedish brown beans back here in the back. We've got some oddball jars over here that we don't have boxes for. More cranberries. This is grape juice right here that we also made from our grapes. And then this is some spicy tomato juice that Kelly made, kind of like a V8 juice. And then some store-bought stuff I got in California when I went on that trip out there recently. We've got some sun-dried apricot barbecue sauce that I really liked that my cousin gets for me. And then some sun-dried plum barbecue sauce. And then this garlic we cannot get in Nebraska. It's Christopher Ranch. So while I was out there, I bought 8 jars of it and brought that home. And then I also brought some of our Portuguese marinade that we can't get out here. And I can't even find this online. So I'm going to have to get a supply of this when somebody comes out or when I go out. I've got 6 bottles of it. It's really good. And then continuing on this shelf here, we got bone broth. We got our beef stew that's phenomenal. Check out the video for that. Super easy to make. And then this is our canned beef. And we have 1 jar left of our zucchini relish. But we have some more upstairs in the pantry. Like 2 jars of that. And then down here we have our ketchup. We got 8 jars of ketchup. We got some of our carrots left. I didn't grow any carrots this year. I probably should have. Still have a jar of zucchini, squash. We have 3 jars of green beans left that from my buddy Matt's garden out in California like 3 years ago. They're still fantastic. 5 jars of beans that we canned. And that's about it. So over here on this side, we have some of our catering supplies. We have coffee pots for hot chocolate, hot water, coffee, whatever. We have our bulk drink containers. I also used to use those for olives. That's like my first video on YouTube was when I made olives in these. And then we have our fermentation kit back here that we bought. It's got the right caps and everything that allow the gases to bleed off when you're fermenting. Got a couple chafing dishes up here. We have our small lids and our large lids. We have some of these reusable lids. I forget who makes these. They're Tatler lids. Just in case we have an issue, we can't get lids anymore, we got reusable lids that we can use. Finally got a good supply of canning lids, large and small. And then we also have rings and lids over here. Got a supply of pectin up here if we need it. And some more of my wine vinegar with the mother in it up here. So Ramona and I are going to grab some stuff for dinner. We're going to make some pasta sauce. So we're going to get some of our home canned tomatoes. We're going to do a couple 1-jar recipes. I'm going to grab a can of our meat down here that we're going to use for one recipe because I'm going to make 2 different pasta sauces. So let me get these jars put away and we'll get upstairs and get to making that. Do yourself a favor and keep your jars separated by size and type as you put them back away. That way you know what you're grabbing when you're going to go canning again. I got all my oddball sizes over here, like little, like half-pint jelly jars, and even got some big old flat ones up here, weird looking ones. I used to make personal apple pies, and these things were really cool. You just put some crust in there and some apple pie filling and bake it. And then you can give little personal apple pies out of those. But we got some of those. We got our quilted regular jelly jars here. And then wide mouth pints, narrow mouth pints, quarts, narrow mouth, wide mouth. And then we got some pint and a half. They're just a half a pint short of a quart. Really weird. I can meat in those. It takes about a pound of meat to fill those. But we got some oddball square jars over here that we can use for just small batch stuff. And then I keep, like my rice, when I buy my rice, I keep these containers because they're good for storing dry beans and stuff. I just realized I only got 1 jar of our beef left. And these other 2 jars down here are Portuguese soup recipe, sopas, that I have. But really handy to can meat. We just take this layer of fat off of the top. And you got a real low-fat meat product. Let's go get some Italian sausage out of the freezer. I'm in here looking for some Italian sausage, and I'm finding that all we have is breakfast sausage and chorizo. So I'm going to use some chorizo. Got a little nice kick to it. Make it out of that. Okay, we got both of our pots going here. The nice thing about freezing your sausage in those little flat bags like that, we flatten it out, is it thaws really quickly. I just put it in the pot, put the pot on low. Come back about 10 minutes later, you can break it up and turn the heat up and start sauteing it. But while we're waiting for that, we're going to make Kelly's pasta sauce. We're making two because this one's going to be a little spicy, and we're going to make one not spicy for Kelly. We're going to do a play on her Auntie Marge's Sunday gravy recipe. And usually you got to cook the meat down like all day to get it tender. But because we cooked this meat and canned it, or actually it cooked in the canning jar as we were canning it, this meat is super tender. It just flakes apart real easy. So you avoid the all-day cooking process with this. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a little salt and pepper in here and dice an onion and throw it in there. All right, we've got the salt and pepper to taste. We've had it, put an onion in there diced up. The next thing we're going to do is put in some beef broth. This is 32 ounces of beef broth, which is a quart. So I'm going to use half of this, which is going to be 2 cups, or 16 ounces. I think I've done both of these recipes I'm doing before for YouTube, so you can find them. If not, we're showing you how to do it here. All right, we're going to add our fresh tomatoes that we canned from the garden. The recipe usually calls for more, but we're doing probably about half of what a normal recipe is. And if you didn't know, that was about 1 pound of meat in that jar. So we're going to add this whole jar of our good garden tomatoes. And then usually calls for some tomato paste. I'm going to use some of our homemade ketchup, which is very similar to our tomato paste. I'm going to use, it would be equal to about a regular small can of tomato paste. So we're going to throw that in. So to our mix, we added 4 good cloves of crushed garlic, a teaspoon of the dry oregano, 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, and 1 tablespoon of sugar. The reason we add the sugar to the pasta sauce is it cuts the acid of the tomatoes just a little bit and keeps it from tasting too tomatoey. So we're going to stir this up and let that simmer when it comes to a boil. And then we're going to start on this other pasta sauce. And as promised, see how this is all thawed out over here? So we can start putting this together. All right, we have our chorizo all browned up. And like I said, I usually like to use Italian sausage in this, but when I'm making it for Kelly and I, she doesn't like Italian sausage. So I'll normally just use ground beef or the canned meat like we're using in the other recipe. So to this, I call this my 1 jar recipe, which means we use 1 jar of our good tomatoes from the garden. Now to that, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of dried basil, 2 teaspoons dried oregano. But instead of doing that, I'm going to add 4 teaspoons of just Italian seasoning because it has both. Sorry folks if I'm not following the original recipe. Every time I make something, I tweak it just a little bit different according to what I have on hand. So there's always a little tweak of the ingredients. So the next thing we added was 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt. We're going to chop another whole onion and put that in there, and we'll come back after that. All right, we got our onion in, and then we also added about 4 cloves of crushed garlic. We'll get that stirred in there. And then we put in 2 tablespoons of some good olive oil, and then we're going to let this simmer. And if this starts getting to where it needs moisture, we'll put a little more of that beef broth, or a little of that beef broth in this one if it starts getting too thick. Now, because I'm not using Italian sausage, I think I'm going to add just a little bit of fennel to this. And fennel is the thing that Kelly does not like. That's why she doesn't like the Italian sausage. Go figure, an Italian that doesn't like fennel. So I'm going to probably put about a teaspoon of fennel into this. All right, put a teaspoon of our fennel seed, our dry fennel seed in there, and then we're going to bruise it up real good in our little mortar and pestle to release some of the flavor, and then we'll throw it in the pot. Okay, we've got both of our sauces put together. I've got this pot on low because it's a wider bottom, so it boils a little bit easier. I got this pot on about medium to medium high. We're going to reduce these sauces down a little bit and thicken them up, cook the onions in them. And we have a pot back here of hot water on low. When we get ready to cook our 1 pound of rotini noodles, it's my favorite, we'll fire that thing up and get it boiling and cook our pasta. Our sauces are just about reduced down to where we want them. That meat's going to all start coming apart like it's been cooked all day long. It'll break down in that sauce. So this one's looking really good. You want to stir it every 5 minutes or so. Make sure you're not sticking to the bottom. Make sure you're, as always, using a heavy bottom pot. So this is looking real good. That's Auntie Marge's Sunday gravy. And then this is my 1 jar tomato sauce. Is looking good. So we're going to crank up the heat, get that water boiling, and get our pasta in there. All right, we've got our pasta in, a pound of our rotini pasta. And we're going to go about 6 minutes and start checking it. We want this pasta al dente. We do not want it cooked all the way. And the reason people cook pasta only al dente is because we're going to put it into our sauce, and it's going to finish cooking in our sauce and pick up some of that flavor from the sauce and not be just plain old tasty noodles. Also, make sure your water's salted when you boil your noodles, because that also adds flavor to your pasta. Okay, after 7.5 minutes or so, our pasta is al dente. We are going to start putting it into our sauce, and I'm just going to split this up over both of these pots. We'll put those right in the pot. Keep going half and half until we get all the pasta out of here. We've got all our noodles in our pot. We've transferred the other recipe into the big pot, reserving a little bit of our cooking pasta liquid in case we need it. Now remember, we're going to cook this pasta a little bit. We've got these pots on low. We want those noodles to soak up some of that sauce. Get some flavor to it. Look how rich and meaty this one is. Beautiful. Probably going to add a little bit of that pasta water to this pot. And we cooked that down quite a bit. So let's add a little bit in there. All right, we've added a little bit of that pasta water. Looks about the right consistency. Now, let's check one of these noodles and see if they've cooked long enough. All right, it has been a minute or two, and our noodles are the tenderness that we want. Now, remember how we finish our spaghetti off. Butter. Normally, I use half a cube, but since I've got this recipe pretty much split up, I'm only using 1/4 in each. We'll melt that butter in there, and then we'll probably put about 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese in each pot and melt that into there, and then we will be ready to eat. Okay, after the butter melts, you turn it fire off, throw your Parmesan cheese in, stir it up, and look at that, folks. That looks meal fit for a king right there. Can't wait to dig in. Here's our other pot. Fantastic. I've tasted them both for spice in case we needed any more salt, and we are good. So we're going to ring the dinner bell. There it is. A little more Parmesan cheese on top. Let's get a bite of that. Very tasty. Nice and spicy like I like it. So I hope you try these quick meals that we did. And I hope you get your pantry stocked so you can go shopping in your pantry like we do. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, fill that pantry, grow a garden, get her done. Love you guys. Bye.